LA Kings fans chime in on a variety of topics, including the future direction of the organization, that and more on part 2 of our fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL. And I'm a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. We had part 1 of our fan feedback show on our previous show. It is time for part 2. Going to get to the more emails that you sent in. I will read them in the order in which they were received. And there was a little bit of editing that I had to do to make sure that we get all of the emails in. And we start with Carl in San Luis Obispo. And he says, I've been an everyday watcher for the past 2 years. Thank you for that, Carl. First-time emailer. I like that. Love and appreciate what you do for the podcast and fans. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for watching and listening. I just wanted to share my frustration that Jim Hiller dressed Jacob Moverar and played him for 22 seconds. Give the kid a chance. If I remember correctly, they dressed him over Cole Gutman, who is lighting it up in the AHL. I bought a Moverar jersey to show my support. Well, that's putting your money where your mouth is. He reminds me of Davis Drewiski. I'm sure next season it'll be worth just as much as my Eric Erisberg jersey. Just the name and number that the majority of fans won't remember. Do you have any players that you liked who never got the opportunity to stick around? Oscar Moeller, Scott Parse, Curtis McDermott, Matt Luff, and Tobias Bjornfat, to name a few. I feel like the past 8 to 10 years, the Kings have had so many random defensemen come and go during doing brief stints. They need to build around Clark and bring up more homegrown D and forwards and let them develop. Look at San Jose. Half the team can't even drink at a bar. They are going to be unreal in the next 10 seasons. Go Kings go. And that was Carl in San Luis Obispo. Well, Carl, I love being reminded of old names from the past that I haven't thought of in a while. You got some good ones there. Davis Drewiski is a deep cut. You might be shocked to know, maybe not you, Carl, but fans in general might be shocked to know that his name is on the Stanley Cup for the 2012 season. The LA Kings petitioned the NHL to have Davis Drewiski and Kevin Westgarth's names on the Stanley Cup, even though they didn't qualify because of the number of games played, and I don't think they played in any playoff games. And the NHL granted them permission. You can do that in certain cases. If, players have to meet a certain criteria, and if they don't, you can petition. And they did, and so Davis Drewiski's name is on the Stanley Cup. Wow. That one name that pops in my head, I remember I liked Jason Blake a lot. He was a little scrappy forward the Kings had for a while. His son, Jackson, is now playing for the Carolina Hurricanes, which always makes me feel old when a player that I watched has a son now playing in the NHL. And there's a lot of them now, by the way. As for Jacob Moverar in that game that he played 22 seconds, I'm pretty sure that Cole Gutman wasn't on the team yet. I think they called him up that same day, but they were playing in Winnipeg, and I don't think he made it there in time. So the Kings actually only had 11 forwards to dress. So they had an extra spot. It was like, why not dress Moverar as insurance? If a defenseman goes down, we have an extra forward to use. Still, 22 seconds is a little silly. I mean, play him a couple of minutes at least. As for San Jose and all that young talent, they definitely have some great young players, but everyone just assumes, all these young players are going to work out, like Quinton Byfield, for example. And it doesn't always work out, unfortunately. Rob in Westchester checking in. He says, Eddie, it's been a while since I wrote you on our Kings, mainly because they are frustrating the hell out of me. Not good enough to get me excited, not bad enough for me to throw up my hands and say, blow this team up. Here's what I think is going to happen. Number one, Jim Hiller will last out the season. I do not see the Kings firing him, although I think he's earned it. I think this season was a last try to contend for a deep playoff run, and at the end of the season, the Kings will begin a serious retool. Number 2, Drew Doughty will be offered a trade for a last chance to contend for the Cup. Darcy Kemper as well, so both can have one more chance to go somewhere and contend. CC, Dumoulin, Byfield, I suspect, will be released or traded for cap space and to create space for new players to take the reins. No pun intended. And number 3, I think Byfield is gone. I hope he is. Swing for Austin Matthews or some elite center to work with Kempe and others, as well as a placeholder goalie until our prospects are ready to build a strong core that will make us competitive for the coming seasons. What are your thoughts on this? Keep up the good work. Go Kings, go. That was Rob in Westchester. Well, it would not shock me if Jim Hiller lasted the rest of the season. If the Kings are going to start a rebuild or retool after this season, I could see Drew Doughty wanting out. And I would consider trading Darcy Kemper as well, but that's not going to happen this season, I don't think. And I don't think Quinton Byfield's going anywhere. Also, the only way that an Austin Matthews we could get our hands on somebody like him is if he demanded a trade out of Toronto and said, I want to go to LA. And I just don't see that happening. Maybe a guy like a Jason Robertson is an outside possibility. But yeah, getting those kind of players is very rare, and having them come to LA, frankly, unfortunately, is very rare. Fred Glasser in Orange says, so Tuesday night, the Kings bring back the Korean harmonica class. I'm thinking desperate times call for desperate measures. I'll take a goal in the first 18 seconds. If they can string a few more wins together, the Korean harmonicas might be getting a limo to get them to the games and a suite reserved for them. Sunday, February the 1st, if things don't work out and we don't land on our feet, it might not be a watch party, but rather it might be a vigil. We'll see how the next 6 games on the road go for the team. Eddie, you're a great way to start the day. Go Kings, go. And that was Fred in Orange, who I assume listens to the podcast in the mornings. Appreciate that, Fred. So the reason the Korean harmonica ladies were at that game against the Rangers, it wasn't because the Kings felt like they needed some good mojo, although maybe that was part of it, but it was Korean Heritage Night that night. So that's why they were there. But yes, if we have a big game coming up, we may need to call on their services again. He referenced the Locked On Watch Party that we're hoping to have on February the 1st. And I hope to have some details on that for you guys soon. Crystal in Santa Monica checking in. She says, I'd say you were right on target when proposing that the Kings do something like call up Andrew Lord next year. Hockey is continually evolving. Even Stoley said the game is already different than when he played. We don't need to bring in a coach out of the retirement or pick up anyone close to the end of their career. We need a young up-and-coming coach with new ideas that are more aligned with the new generation of young players. Since only 3 coaches have ever won the Cup more than once, I also think prioritizing a former winner is misguided. The winning comes from a perfect storm of a particular coach with specific players at the exact right moment. If it was about a coach's strategy or formula, then you'd see a lot more repeat winners or some who win no matter where they go. But it doesn't work that way. And consistently recycling the same stable of coaches amongst the teams is tiresome and limits the evolution of the sport. In general, I'm sick of this team's infatuation with veterans, signing mediocre veterans like CC rather than playing and developing guys like Spence, Dursey, Roy, etc. Letting Drew insist on all the minutes instead of playing the stats-based best D-man on the team, Clark. It cost us Gabby, too. Bringing a GM out of retirement instead of doing a true search for someone who could come in and revitalize the organization. Even the decision to hire John Kelly when Nick retired still pisses me off. That should have been Josh Schaefer's chair, and it should have still been Alex Faust's chair anyway. Don't get me started. A refusal to focus on youth and adaptation is going to keep this team on the margins. Enough already. Thanks for being a touchstone for the fans, Eddie. And that was Crystal in Santa Monica. I get the idea of moving in a different direction with new people and new ideas. And I definitely hope that that will be the case if the Kings decide to go and do a rebuild. That said, Jim Hiller wasn't an old retread coach, and that hasn't really worked out. And look at the Anaheim Ducks. I think that they are much happier with the old coach, Joel Quenneville, than Greg Cronin, who was a new first-time coach that they hired before Quenneville. So just some examples of it not always working out with a new coach with fresh ideas, that kind of thing. Look, Andrew Lord may well be a NHL head coach someday. He's done a great job with the Ontario Reign in his first year. I think he's someone to watch. I don't think he's a serious contender for any kind of a position right now. but could be in the near future. As for what teams, want to do now as far as a head coach, look, for the Kings, I'm looking for a head coach that's going to challenge the players. I'm looking for a head coach that's not going to panic in a big playoff game. And I'm looking for a coach that can handle those kind of pressure situations. To me, that comes from an established coach who has won at the highest level or come close to it. So that's why I believe this version of the LA Kings would need that kind of a coach. And I will say, and this is nothing against John Kelly, the Kings should have never gotten rid of Alex Faust. And I will say Josh Schaefer, I think, has proven to me that he is ready to get his shot. I hope he will get it soon. More concerns over Quinton Byfield. We'll get into that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. There's nothing like being near the ice for a hockey game. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home's great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. That's why the Gametime app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pull up the Gametime app on my phone, check out the upcoming games of the LA Kings, and get great seats fast. The app is incredibly easy to use. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just minutes. One of my favorite features is seeing the view from my seat before I buy, so I know exactly what I'm getting. And the zone deals are clutch. You choose the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing NHL tickets available for as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game night out. I really like that the fees are included up front, so the price you see is the price you pay. Knowing tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee gives real peace of mind as well. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. All right, Brian number 1 is checking in Huntington Beach. We have 2 Brians in Huntington Beach. So this is Brian number 1. He says, I was wondering if you could do a Whatever Happened to Quinton Byfield episode. A couple of years ago, you had a guest on. I don't remember his name, nor was I able to find the episode he was on, who said the QB would have a breakout season last year, and there didn't seem to be any reason to doubt him. Byfield was showing flashes of becoming a star center. So what happened? I'm curious to get this former guest's take on what he thinks has gone wrong with QB. To me, it seems as if Byfield is just doing whatever he's being told to do in order to stay in the NHL instead of playing his game. Fortunately, I think Brant Clark is doing the opposite. He's not going to let the Kings' style change. He's not going to let the Kings change his style of play, a style that got him to the NHL. Thanks for another great week of shows, and go Kings go. Brian number 1 in Huntington Beach. Okay, I think you were referring to a guy named Heidi Kalikesh. He used to be our Locked On NHL Prospects host. He no longer is. He's now working for Elite Prospects. And I believe he said that by this season, Quinton Byfield would be the best player on the LA Kings roster, and he said he had no doubt about it. And look, just remember before this season, Quinton Byfield got invited to the Canadian pre-Olympic camp. So clearly a lot of people thought that he was a star rising in the right direction. And clearly he's taken a step back this year, or he certainly at least hasn't taken a step forward. So I think a lot of people thought, including myself, that this was going to be the season for Q to break out. Now, I'm not ready to give up on him yet. I don't think the Kings are either, but it has been a very disappointing year for Quinton Byfield. There's no question about that. Frank in Ranchos Palos Verdes says, the Kings win over the Rangers was definitely a mixed bag at best. The play of QB was very disappointing. Besides getting absolutely smoked in the faceoff circle on what appeared to be most every draw, his play on the second goal by the Rangers was exceptionally bad. Once again, losing a D-zone faceoff and then letting Miller fly by him for an easy tap-in was hard to watch. It's bad enough that he is really struggling on the offensive side, but now he's getting beat on his own end as well. It's no wonder Hiller limits his play 5-on-5, but also on the power play as well. He's had every opportunity to step up, but he hasn't. Moving him to wing, I believe, won't help. Don't forget, he went like 40 games without a goal. Playing with Kemper and Kopitar. Sorry for the rant on QB, but he's one frustrating guy to watch. Keep up the great work. Go Kings, go. And that was Frank in RPB. Again, yes, he has been a very big disappointment this year. He didn't have a great game against the Rangers for the faceoffs. I got to think at this point it's a mental confidence issue with him. We have to get him going the rest of the way. I don't know what it's going to take to turn him around. He needs a big game and try and build on it from there. But he doesn't seem like he's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Henry is checking in from Spokane Valley, Washington. And he says, give a shout out to the boys in the CDA. Maybe we can meet up for a game watch one of these days. I have to say, I am so disappointed in Glass Joe, a.k.a. Darcy Kemper. Never seen a goalie go down so easy. This is the second time that he's had a WTF injury. I don't get it. Also, on another thing, did you see the way Taves reacted to the fans in tribute? Quickie needs to pay attention. I hope to see Byfield get going sooner or later. Sorry, bitter Kings fans. We're saying, sorry, bitter King fan tonight. Love the show since you took over. Been an everydayer the whole time. Go Kings, go. And that was Henry in Washington. Appreciate your support, Henry. Hopefully Darcy Kemper can avoid any more collisions this season. Glad he's didn't miss any games, although he did have to leave that particular game. But he should be ready to go, and we certainly need him at the top of his game. The Jonathan Quick comments after the Rangers game, again, very disappointing. I get it that he's a extreme competitor. I know he hasn't played well this year, and I know he just lost the game. But, when you're asked about, LA Kings fans supporting him, I mean, he should have just said, I always appreciate that. And I don't think that's too much to ask. So it was a bad look for Jonathan Quick, unfortunately. Alan in Sonoma checks in. He says, every day are here. Thank you, Alan. I need to share what ended up being one of the best sports experiences of my life for my 47th birthday. I'm a lifelong SoCal sports fan who's now transplanted in NoCal, and my wife completely surprised me with tickets to the Kings-Ducks game last Friday for me, my brother, sister, and best friend. As it turns out, my friend knows Jim Fox through the wine industry, and Jim was absolutely incredible to chat with. He kept it real with us about how he sees the team right now, asked us for our own analysis, and genuinely wanted to hear what fans thought. That alone was special, but then he invited us up for a sneak peek at the press box and walked us through his workflow. As a sports fan, that's something I will never forget. Easily one of my all-time favorite fan experiences. As for the state of the Kings, it feels like the leadership at the player level is in a strange place right now. You can't help but wonder, is Kopitar starting to think about sailing off into the sunset? Is Drew's focus split between Team Canada and the Olympics? And honestly, Holland doesn't feel like the right fit long-term, especially given where this team is in its cycle. At this point, it feels like the future hinges on who is evaluating and developing draft talent. Hopefully, Byfield and Turcotte can still figure it out, because swinging and missing on top draft picks is devastating to an NHL franchise, arguably more so than any other sport. Thanks for everything you do, Eddie. And that was Alan in Sonoma. Well, happy belated birthday, Alan. Sounds like you have an awesome wife. I can relate. Jim Fox is not only an awesome broadcaster, he is an awesome person. We have been fortunate to have him on this show many times, and he's just a great guy. You said Ken Holland doesn't feel like the right fit long-term, and you're right. But I guess the good news is he isn't likely to be here long-term. He signed a short-term deal with the Kings, but the problem is I think the Kings might need to start turning the page soon, as late as next season. And the question is, do we really want Ken Holland on the wheel of a rebuild? My answer is no, but he is under contract through at least next season. So that could be an issue. Coming up, I will tell you what I would have told the LA Kings if I was Ken Holland before they left on this big road trip. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Mike in Ventura checking in. He says, bottom line, I don't think we are right there whatsoever. That said, I think it's time for a rebuild. I'm in favor of seeing what this current group can do as is and ride out the rest of the season. I don't like the players that are available in possible trades right now or the cost associated with obtaining them. Does anyone truly think we are close with our current roster and just need a player or two to go deep in the playoffs? I certainly don't. I don't trust Holland to make trades trying to make this current team a winner. He'd sacrifice too much of our future, and it's just not worth it with this current team. Honestly, I'd much rather be cheering for an exciting young and up-and-coming team like the Sharks or Ducks. Biggest problem I have now is that if we were to rebuild, I don't believe in our existing management to oversee it. I wish our ownership would simply clean house. The coaches, management, scouting down to the studs. First person needs to go is Robitaille. He has fed the fans so much BS in the past. I can't fathom why he's still in charge. The only guys I like are our development people. All the best, Eddie, and that was Mike in Ventura. Okay, so you're talking about, this group of players. Do you believe in them? So on and so forth. Should they add or not? If I was Ken Holland, and I'm certainly not, I would have had a team meeting before they left on this upcoming road trip. And I would have said, boys, you've got 8 games until the Olympic break. Show me in those 8 games that you're going to be a playoff team with a big road trip, and I will do everything in my power to add pieces for a playoff run. If not, the for sale sign is out, and we're going to be making moves for the future. That's what I would have done. Do I think Ken Holland did that? No. But I think, again, if I was in charge, this stretch of games is their chance to prove it or not to me. And if they don't, I would start selling pieces and start thinking about the future. If they do, they have a great road trip and they show me, yes, this group can get it done. I would try and add some pieces to help them do that. But I would put it on the table for them and say, it's right there. Prove it to me. You guys prove it to me or don't. And I'll make my decision from there. I would have loved to have seen that. So I don't think that happened, but that's what I would have done if I was Ken Holland. Brian number 3 is checking in Colorado Springs. Now, no, Brian, we're not numbering all of the Brians. It's only if you come from the same place as if you were Brian in Huntington Beach, then you would be Brian number 3. But you're Brian in Colorado Springs, so we're okay there, okay? He says, it's been a while since I've written in, but I want to get back to being part of the community. I think that the entire plan for the offseason this year was based on the prospects and young players developing into guys that they thought they drafted. A few years ago, the Kings were considered to have one of the best prospect pools in the NHL, but none of them have come into the potential that they were assumed to have had. I honestly think that more of a spotlight should be put on the player development aspect of the organization because the Kings haven't produced a truly dynamic and exciting forward in a long time. Kempe's the closest, but he's not blowing most people's doors off, even when he is potting 35 goals a season. As far as Brandt Clarke's ice time, the only thing I can think of is that Hiller just doesn't like him for some reason. I don't know if you or anyone else has any intel on how he is in the room or how he works at practice, but his gameplay warrants more minutes for sure. If Hiller is holding some sort of grudge that's stopping him from putting the best version of the team on the ice, then that alone makes him not the right man for the job. I have no idea if this is in fact the case, but again, it's the only thing I can think of. Thanks for the great show. Go Kings, go. And that was Brian in Colorado Springs. I think Brandt Clarke, Alex Laferriere, and even Alex Turcotte are younger players this season who have played up to expectations in terms of what we were looking for them to do this season. The one that certainly has not is Quinton Byfield. I think there's been more veteran players who have not played to their potential. Trevor Moore, Warren Fogle, Andrei Kopitar, to some extent, Andrei Kuzmenko have not played up to expectations. Kuzmenko's been better lately, which is positive. But Jim Hiller has actually given Brandt Clarke more ice time and more responsibilities this season compared to last season. But it seems like a lot of people, including myself, feel like Brandt Clarke has proven on the ice he deserves even more ice time and responsibilities. So you gave him more responsibilities, you gave him more ice time. Look what he's done with it. So why not give him even more? And if it doesn't work out, if it's too much for him, you can always cut back. It's not like you have to. You're making some decision you can't come back from. So it doesn't make any sense to me because of how he's done with that extra responsibility and ice time. Give him more, and maybe he'll be even better. Jesse in Eagle Rock is checking in. He says, when I wrote in complaining that Jason Robertson got snubbed for the Olympics, you said you would have cut Vincent Trocheck in his place. I agree. I would have cut Trocheck or JT Miller. Ironically, I'd love to trade for either of them now that the Rangers are having a fire sale. Seems like we're stuck in the middle this year. A great trade could help us make a deeper playoff run, but not all the way to the cup. Taking advantage of the seller's market could make us a better team overall, but hurt morale by essentially giving up on the season. Either way, I just don't want Elias Pettersson. Thanks for providing such a great show. And that was Jesse in Eagle Rock. I did see that very respected hockey insider Elliot Friedman talked about on his latest podcast the possibility of Artemi Panarin coming to LA. I talked about that earlier in an episode this week. I would love to get him as a rental for a fairly reasonable price, but I think that's unlikely. I think the only way he comes to LA is if we're willing to sign him to a long-term deal, which we shouldn't. So I would say, just as far as what you were talking about, Robertson over Trocheck, I think Robertson's a better player than Trocheck, but that doesn't mean that I don't think Vincent Trocheck isn't a good player and isn't a player that could possibly help the LA Kings. And I also don't want Elias Pettersson as well. Ed and Brea checks in. He had his usual rant about the Ducks winning the Stanley Cup, although it's funny, he wasn't saying that when they had lost 9 in a row, but now that they're on a winning streak, the Ducks are going to win the Stanley Cup again. He says, this week was the anniversary of the Kings' first championship banner. That season started late due to work stoppage. I didn't know that was the case this week. He says, the fact the Kings' upper management is not considering a coaching change or trade makes me wonder if the Kings are really focused on winning. Example, Vegas Golden Knights. They got Rasmus Andersson because they want to win. Good to see Jonathan Quick again for maybe the final time in his career, depending on if he wants to retire like Andrei Kopitar. Felt bad for him since now he's 0-2 in starts when he comes back to LA. Looks like Anton Forsberg lately has been playing better. That game against the Rangers and the Quacks, he looks good. I'm concerned maybe fatigue and age is getting to Darcy Kuemper at age 35. Keep up the good work. He also said, also chatted with Alex Faust in his return to LA. I saw him later that night at the hotel across the street while chatting with fans. He was celebrating his birthday with Jim Fox and Josh Schaefer. Oh, good nugget there from Ed and Brea, seeing Alex Faust celebrating his birthday in Los Angeles. Actually, never met Alex Faust, but I am a fan of his work. I do think the Kings are looking to make a trade. I'll be very surprised if they don't do something. I was not sad to see Jonathan Quick go 0-2 in LA, especially after his latest comments. And I don't think Darcy Kuemper is fatigued, but he may be a bit injury prone. Thank you to everyone who took the time to email this week. This show is literally not possible without your participation. Our next show will be after the Kings Blues game on Saturday. It's a huge game for the Kings. They very much need 2 points to get this 6-game road trip started. And maybe we'll find out what this Kings team's going to do based on these next 6 games. We shall see. If you want to get an email in for the feedback show or for any other reason, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And you can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. It helps the algorithm. We appreciate that. We'd love you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.